Hello, this is Wayne Pierce with an episode of Math Rocks. Today we are talking about multiplication. We're multiplying decimals using grids. So decimal numbers using grids. The first problem that we're going to do here on our clipboard, you can see right here, we're going to do a whole number 3 times 1500ths. 3 times 1500. So I'm going to use some of my favorite colors. Let's start with blue. So we can read this as 3 times 1500ths, or we could read this as 3 groups of 1500ths. Here is my hundredths griddable, and I need to shade 15. So if I shade the first column here, I know that that is 1/10. Or 10 out of 100. So that's 10, and I need 5 more to have 1500ths. So with my blue, I have shaded 1500ths. Now I need 3 groups. I need 3 groups of these. That's group number 1. Let's switch to a nice green. I'm going to shade another group of 1500ths green. There's 5. And then 5 plus 10 is 15. So there's my 1500ths green. So you can see now I have a group of blue, 1500ths, a blue group of green. And now let's go with a red. So one column here is 1/10 or 10/100ths if you wish to look at it that way. And then plus 5 more. So I have shaded 3 groups of 1500ths. So let's count these and see how many we have. So here's one column, that's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, or 40 individual squares, and then 41, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 45 out of 100, that is 4500ths. 4500ths. So just to recap, we did a whole number 3 times 1500ths. 3 groups of 1500ths is 4500ths. And we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 45 individual squares out of 100 shaded. So that's the first type of problem we'll do using grids. We're solving decimal problems, and instead of using the standard algorithm, we are using grids to do the work for us. Okay, for this next problem here, we will solve 4/10 times 5/10. So 4 columns will be 4/10. So here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4. So that is 4/10. Then I will take my red. This time I'm going to shade horizontally from left to right. So I'm shading the factors in different directions so that I can see the intersection where they intersect what they have in common. Now I'm shading 5/10. That's going to be our product with this particular problem. So notice I shaded 4 columns of 4/10. Now I'm doing 5 rows, which will be 5/10. So that's 3 and 4 and 5. So here's my 4/10. Here's my 5/10. Let me go ahead and label those. So here's the 4/10. You can see. Here's the 5/10. What they have in common should be our product, should be our answer. Let's count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So we have 20 out of 100, and that is 20/100ths, or you could say it is 2/10. And if we double check this using our standard algorithm, I believe you will also get 2/10 or 20/100ths. We can check that in a second. Okay, let's move on to our last type of problem using the grids. Here we have 1 2/10. So we have more than one whole, 1 2/10 times 4/10. And we're going to work this the same way. I am going to choose a lighter blue here. And I'm going to go ahead and shade one whole square. So I'm shading one whole square. And then I also need to shade 2/10 of another 100ths griddable. There we go. And I'm multiplying it by 4/10. So I'm going to go with my red again, and I'm going from left to right. There's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. So I shaded 4/10 on my one whole. Now I also need to do it over here on the 2/10. So that's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and 4/10. And then again, I'm looking at what they have in common. So what they have in common on this first griddable is 4/10. 4/10. I'm going to label that. Or if you want to put the 0, 40/100ths, it's same value. And then on our next one here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 100. So that is 8/100ths. 8/100ths. And if we add those together, 4/10 plus 8/100ths, we get 48/100ths. 48/100ths. So we're going to check these real quickly using our standard algorithm. So let's check the first one. Our first problem, we had 3 times 15/100ths. 3 times 15/100ths. 3 times 5 is 15. Regroup a 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Count your decimal places, 1 and 2. We have 2 decimal places. Move it that many spaces, 1 and 2, 4,500. So you can see we got 4,500 using our standard algorithm and 4,500 using our grid. Next, we're going to check 4/10. 4/10 times 5/10 using our standard algorithm. So we have 4/10 times 5/10. Work it just like we would a normal multiplication problem. 5 times 4 is 20. Let's see, regroup a 2. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 2. Drop a 0. 0 times 4 is 0. We can go ahead and add these up now. 0 and 2. Count the decimal places, 1 and 2. We have 2 decimal places, so we will move over that many spaces. Remember, behind every whole number lives a decimal. You move that over 2 spaces, and we get 20/100ths, or 2/10. And that's exactly what we got using our grid. Okay, last but not least, let's check our last problem here using our standard algorithm. We have 1 2/10 times 4/10. 1 2/10 times 4/10. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. Drop a 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. Didn't leave space. 8 and 0 is 8. 4 and 0 is 4. We have 2 decimal places in our factors. So we have to have 2 decimal places in our product, 1 and 2. And we get 48/100ths, which is the same thing we got. Oh, forgot to drop a decimal there. Same thing we got with our diagram. Okay, so that's multiplying decimals using grids, and then we checked with our standard algorithm. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Math Rocks with Mr. Pierce.